Good day, everybody. This is Klazart, host of the SC2GG Commentator Idol, and we've arrived at the week of 3. There are only 3 contestants left. This is episode 5, and they've just done surprise historical commentaries and had to go through a grueling test of StarCraft knowledge and pro gaming trivia knowledge. Both very important parts of being a commentator of Korean pro games, of course. And this week we have 2 special guest judges. We have Greth and Klazart. And Greth is from Belgium. He is a hilarious commentator. He's been around SC2GG from its start over a year ago. Greth, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Right, so hello, I'm Greth, and I'm here purely for self-promotion, because yes, I was one of the first commentators, and not really that famous yet, so please go to my channel, please, I need the attention.
Okay. Next we have Klazart, the godfather of StarCraft commentary. You know, really don't have to introduce him. If you guys are listening to this, you know Klazart. Klazart is the boxer of commentary, of course. He's been doing YouTube commentaries for, I believe, close to 2 years by now, or more even. Klazart, why don't you tell us anything interesting about yourself you think the viewer won't know, the normal viewers won't know?
Hi guys, this is Klazart. I'm sure there's a lot about me that the normal viewers won't know, but I'm not sure that you would want to know. You might be left scarred forever. But I am a self-confessed StarCraft addict until recently, or StarCraft commentary addict until recently in remission. But unfortunately, the Savior Ale has got me back on the bottle. But I'm looking forward to this quite a lot. I really think Klazart has done such a great job, and the show has improved from week to week, and it's actually quite enjoyable to watch. And I just want to say to the contestants that if I sound a little bit harsh, please don't take it to heart. I know you guys put a lot of effort into this, and I do appreciate that.
Thanks, Klazart.
If I sound harsh, it's fully intended. So okay.
So, the competition is definitely top-notch by this week. Every week so far, we've been giving them different challenges to test very different aspects of being a successful commentator. For a brief recap, in the first week we just had them do any Korean pro game played recently. In the second week we had them do replay commentaries on foreigner replays, which tested them both on foreigner knowledge and the ability to cast suboptimal games, and also tested them on being able to control an observer window well, which is so important in doing any live cast or any cast of non-Koreans, of course. Week 3 we had them do dual commentaries on mirror matchups, which really tested them on being able to pass off commentaries to one another when they're doing duels, which are often the most entertaining type of commentary. And finally, week 4, we had to do surprise commentaries, and they basically sat down with me, and I gave them 1 minute to prepare to do 3 series played over 2 years ago. And basically 2 of them were semifinals, 1 of them was the finals, but we didn't pick games that actually determined the results of the finals, so they couldn't be spoiled necessarily in knowing who would win any of these games. And of course, unless they somehow magically remembered who won which, they had no idea who won. They couldn't have a chance to read any analyses of the games. All I gave them was a link to a map and 1 minute to prepare and think about what they would say about these players. And finally, we have the results here. So really, the challenges have gotten harder and harder every week, and we've gotten better and better in terms of the overall skill of these contestants. I'm excited. Let's get this episode started. And we'll be reviewing Kenny's videos first. Now, Kenny, by luck of the draw, got Reach versus I Love Ooh V played in the semifinals of the Uzu MSL in 2005. And here are some clips the judges and I collected from his commentary.
Today we have the man toss, Reach versus I Love Ooh. Both just incredible players, some of the best in their day. Of course, Oops Reach being a Protoss player, and I Love Ooh being one of the most crazy macro Terrans ever to play the game of StarCraft. I'm so excited to be casting this match today. I just can't tell you, I'm shaking with excitement right now. This map, the reason that it is so weird is that your main is on lower ground, so the players have to move up a ramp into the expansion, so it's very easy to get contained. The thing about this map is if a Protoss can do a really early like 10-15 gate, it's so deadly because you pump out like 3 Dragoons with range so fast, and it puts so much pressure on the Terran that they're almost stuck in their base, and then the Protoss from there can just take a decent portion of the map and really feel comfortable. Now, this map can also produce a lot of air, and just love it, man. Right now, I mean, really, both players are just going to establish an expo, it looks like, and it's going to move into a late game. I'm surprised that I Love Uv, how he handled that early harassment. I was actually very impressed. Looks like both players playing extremely defensive, all sorts of goons all over the place in Reach's base, and of course, turrets and tanks and mines all over I Love Uv's base. So, really, defensive game as of so far. But, I mean, you don't want to get into this position with I Love Uv a lot of the time. I Love Uv having incredible macro, but that he can't have those tanks there. And Reach now moving down the map. This could be very critical moment in the game, because if I Love Uv loses his natural, that's all he has for economics. And oh my god, so many more gateways going up for Reach. He's really moving into this huge macro mode, putting up another expansion. He's just taking such an economic advantage over I Love Uv, man. I don't know like what Uv can really do at this point if he doesn't get some huge harassment off. I really just don't know. I mean, Reach is looking like the Trump of this game right now, and I'd have to say I Love Uv is looking so much more poor. Is taking out a few probes here, which is good, but a Reaver is there to save the day yet again. That Reaver is just such a key part of Reach's success this game. So fast, and another huge army. Where the hell did he come up with this army? I mean, oh my god, just a huge army again. And he needs to get some mines down for all these freaking zealots. I don't know what he's doing. He's just not laying any mines. He's just going straight head to head with them. And it looks like he's going to come out on top again. What the hell is going on? How is he coming up with these huge armies? I Love Uv, the macro god himself, is just showing why he was so successful back in the day. He just was... I mean, he just has this ability to produce so many units so fast, beyond what most players are used to playing against. But this 3 dropship build is so smart on this map. It just really is for breaking those tank contains. If he doesn't, he's going to lose this and possibly lose his main and the game. And oh my god, could he drop on all those mines? This could be so huge! Oh my god, a nuclear bomb just went off on all those vultures. I bet Koreans are shitting themselves all over the crowd. Please get the crowd a whole new pair of underwear, because everyone just stained them. Trust me, I did, and I need a new pair right now. Oh my god, that was an epic zealot bomb, and that is why you do not put your vultures on mines, because they will get nuked. Oh my god. I mean, who wins this? And here it goes. Could this be the final battle? Reach moving in. Zealots in front. Trying to mine drag. Storms will be going on. Here comes in the final couple shuttles. This is huge. Storms going off everywhere. Is he going to be able to break this hard push? I think he is. He has plenty of units. I think the Mantos has just done it. I don't know. Tons of mines still separating those last few tanks, though. And GG comes from I Love Uv. The Mantos has done it. Oh my god. What an amazing match. And look at Reach. He is so pumped.
All right, we have our guest judge, Greth, going up first. Greth, what did you think about Kenny's work this week, and do you have any questions to ask Kenny at this present time?
Well, yeah, maybe first of all, how many of the old grades do you actually know? Have you seen a lot of their games? Have you studied them before? Or is it just like a vague, they have been there, like ancient gods, like, okay, they've been there, but now is now, and I only watched the, the recent games?
Well, to be honest, a lot of my older StarCraft knowledge is reserved to the fact that I knew that there was a lot of these dominant players, and I did know about who was dominant back in the day, and I did watch a few of the old school VODs and some of the big games, but to be honest, back then I was a lot more into playing StarCraft itself rather than watching the VODs, and I actually didn't watch a whole bunch back in the day. I have these days kind of switched it around. I play a lot less StarCraft and I watch a lot more of the pro gaming scene. So yeah, I guess to answer the question it'd be I didn't watch as much back then as I do now.
Alright, yeah, that'll do.
Hi Kenny, how's it going?
It's going good, Klazart. I'm very excited to speak with you. You are like my idol of commentary, so I'm excited.
Cheers, thanks. So Greth really asked my question about the quizzes. Obviously, your StarCraft knowledge is pretty cool, and it's quite in depth. But as Greth pointed out, there is an issue about your historical knowledge and your knowledge about even some of the recent stuff. my question to you is you were making quite a lot of prediction at the very start of the game. You were talking about how imbalanced the map was in favor of Protoss versus Terran, and how the Protoss was going to lock the Terran into this kind of little corner, and the Terran wouldn't be able to do anything. And once you felt that Reach had accomplished that, you kind of continued on for a long, long time with that theme, going on about how Reach was comfortably ahead. Yet the reality of the game was that if it wasn't for 2 or 3 brilliant instances of micro by Reach in the middle of those battles, and by your own admission, 1 or 2 small mistakes, as in that huge nuke with the spider mines, which by the way you do great play by play, it has to be said. If it wasn't for those 2 instances, Uvi would probably have come out on top, and you seem quite bemused by that, and I'm wondering why that is. I mean, is there a general sense that you're not really great at judging the flow of the game overall, even though you're quite adept technically?
Well, I'd say I definitely agreed with you that I Love Uv was in a position to win the game before that spider mine went off. I think at one point during it, it might not have been in that clip exactly, but at one point I did mention something regarding to that spider mine, or zealot bomb, really changing the game in Reach's favor almost instantly, because I Love Uv was in a very advantageous position, as you said earlier. So I have to say that I generally think I can read the flow of the game very well. Actually, I'd say that's probably one of my strengths most of the time. I think, again, that historical knowledge, like you said, may be getting to me a little bit, and I'm definitely why I'm brushing up on it as much as I can, because I think in this game, really, the style of play was so much different from what we see really a lot these days, and that can really change the outcome of the games completely. So I think you're right in that statement. So yeah, I think we just need to do a little brushing up on maybe some of my historical knowledge.
All right.
All right, Kenny, not too bad of a job here. I thought that overall you had a pretty good map explanation, even giving some build examples. I was pretty impressed by that. You know, you went the distance in providing us with technical detail that we might not have otherwise. You know, you brought up a lot about those players. That it seemed like you did know some about these players. You may not have known quite what you know about some of the more current players, but overall, you know, the fact that you were able to give them their nicknames and what they were known for doing well, that was fairly impressive. Also, I thought you had good excitement at key points in the match. And really, I thought you were the only commentator in this round who showed real passion when there were some high action points. Obviously, that giant vulture spider mine was one of them. And at the end of the game, with the huge GG at the end, very exciting play-by-play. Although at certain points, I did feel like your play-by-play was a little bit shaky. I wanted to ask you, though, about map statistics. I think you went in, like the other players, the other judges have implied a little bit and gone over, is that you had a little bit of a preconceived notion going into this. Did you think that the map statistics painted a picture before you actually went into this commentary, and do you think that that molded how your commentary flowed?
I think definitely it molded maybe kind of a preconception of who would have more of an advantage and maybe win the game because of that huge advantage. I try not to let the statistics really get to my commentary, because a lot of the time at pro levels anything can happen, and we all know that from countless different upsets and different map percentages really not mattering. So I try not to carry those stats into my commentary, and I can see how maybe a little bit I was throwing a little bit of an edge to Reach, because I myself have played on this map back when I used to play Terran, and I know how difficult it really is when Protoss can put that early pressure on you, and I think maybe I ran with that a little bit too much. But overall, I think that I can really work on not even really work on, but I think I don't take the stats with me too much, and I think that I can learn to kind of not necessarily ignore stats, but mention them and not let them affect my commentary.
Yeah, I find that you know, map statistics are an interesting topic, especially at the top level play, because you really need to look at what they say to interpret them properly. You know, if a map is 80-20 in favor of one race, obviously the stats paint a pretty clear picture of what goes on in general in those games. But you got to keep in mind that there are always wins for one race, and who do you think they come from, right? They come from players like Uvi, because he's the person who's able to overcome those stats and find the weakness and the strengths in that map for his race and use it to his advantage. So always something to point out, especially in finals, OSL finals, MSL finals, stuff to keep in mind, because despite what the statistics may say, you know, it can go any way, like you were saying before. So just something to keep in mind for future commentaries.
Hey Kenny, what's up?
What up, Peanut?
Hey, yeah, so I'm gonna keep this short. One thing that kind of turned me off about the commentary that you did was that every time one player seemed to come out ahead or one player seemed to be doing something well, you'd be like, oh, this player is going to take it all, this player is going to win, this player is awesome, this player is the king, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as the other player did something, and there was a lot of back and forth in this game, as soon as the other player did something else that was brilliant, like a good harass or something, you'd be like, oh, this player is now the best and the king and is going to take this game. And that kind of flip-flopping, I didn't really like it. But that being said, great enthusiasm, and I thought your explanations were great. I thought the excitement in your voice was also great. Good job. No questions.
Thank you, and we'll be moving on right now to how Kenny did on the test he took with me. We'll be looking at one question I felt his answer was very good at, and another question where I felt he didn't answer very well. I'll be doing that for every contestant. Then I'll be asking each contestant one surprise, challenging questions and seeing how they do right in front of the judges. Question 5, and you have a minute for this about, describe the Bisu build.
The Bisu build, if I know it correctly, basically would be against Zerg, and it's usually an opening where you do a standard kind of early expansion into a Stargate build, which you can either from there kind of go off in one of two directions. Either you can go to Starport and focus more on the I guess more on the Corsair side of things and bring Reavers along with that, or drop ships depending on what kind of style of play you want to play and which map it is. Or you can go into from a starport into the Citadel of Adun to High Templar build, which from there is obviously focuses more heavily on the storming and DT drops.
Say a Zerg player sees with an Overlord that a Protoss who has gone Forge Fast Expand has his Forge spinning very early. If the Zerg has no other scouting information, what is the most likely build he can assume the Protoss will do?
Most definitely probably going for a +1 speed leg with maybe a couple Archon attack, which is pretty common for the most part.
What's the benefit of having an early +1 attack as a Protoss player?
It's very advantageous for the fact that it only takes 2 hits for the Zealots to kill Lings, which is really, really useful.
Okay, finally for this question, what are 2 builds that the Zerg can do to counter the Protoss's build?
The one we just went over.
Yes.
Let's see. I've seen, I think most of the time, there's 2 different builds, I guess, that could counter this pretty well. One I've seen is an early expand with kind of you go speed for your Zerglings, and you can go for an early break, or you can do 2 expansion into and kind of sunk up your natural and go for early Hydralisk, or I guess one more that you can do, which isn't necessarily as effective because if they are carrying Archons in their leg rush, it's going to completely rape you. You can go for a 2-hatch Muta build, which is really nice if they only go Zealots, because obviously Zealots can't fight Mutalisks, so yeah.
Very nice. Alright, Kenny. Well, you did very well in general on the StarCraft knowledge section, not necessarily so well on the trivia section, but I have to ask you, why don't you know what the Bisu build is? You described a lot of things that Bisu builds, but it's not the Bisu build that he revolutionized against Protoss versus Zerg in Protoss versus Zerg play. And this is something that absolutely changed the face of how this matchup is being played. I hope you can explain yourself.
Well, to be honest, I took a leave from StarCraft about 2.5 years ago, and up until about 4 to 5 months ago, probably about 4 months ago. And to be honest, I'd heard a lot about the Bisu build, but I'd never heard anyone exactly tell me what the Bisu build was. Whether it was just Corsair DT, whether it was just fast expand to Stargate and go and then split off one of two ways, either Templars or Reaver or Mass Corsair. I mean, I'd never really, I guess, had an exact explanation of what the Bisu build was. I had a general idea of what I thought it was, and so I went with what I believed I thought it was. I know I'm going to get nailed on that because it's a lot of people talk and there's a lot of controversy around the Bisu build, so I've heard. But I guess that would be my explanation for not knowing what the Bisu build was.
Okay.
I just wasn't around.
All right, second part of the cholera grilling. Now, I have 3 questions ready. These are just quick questions, just interesting little situations. What question would you like, Kenny? I'm going to ask each one a different per one. 1 to 3. Pick a number.
I'll go with 2 since I chose 2 last time.
If a burrowed lurker is the only unit under Dark Swarm, will a Terran siege tank in siege mode be able to kill it?
It would not be able to kill it. No.
Would it be able to do any damage to it?
Splash damage if there's units.
Change if there are other units near the burrowed lurker?
Yes, it does.
Okay, very good. Under Dark Swarm, a single burrowed lurker will never take damage of any sort from a siege tank unless there is a unit nearby. If there's a unit nearby, the tank will be able to target that unit, and then when it hits, the splash damage will transfer to the burrowed lurker. This is so important in Terran vs. Zerg play, of course, because it shows you what the power of a burrowed lurker under Dark Swarm is. And you know, Savior really revolutionized that. That was one of my questions from you guys. Anyway, moving on. Why don't we start with Greth once again. Talk about how you did in the quiz in general and StarCraft knowledge and whatnot.
Well, I think the reason he didn't get the pro gamers rights, he explained just a while ago, because, well, he wasn't around and he didn't really catch up to that knowledge yet. So, and a lot of nicknames like the player that always gets number 2, the silver, what was it? I forgot it myself.
King of Silver. Ends yellow.
Yeah, the king of silver. I know that because, well, I was still muddling about on BattleNet when that happened, but yeah, they reused things and they're sort of obscure, so I understand if you only heard it from hearsay that it's hard to do.
I think you're a great commentator. I think you've potential to be really, really good. I think obviously your play-by-play is fine. You've got great excitement. You genuinely enjoy the game of StarCraft, and I think that is one of the most essential qualities in anyone who wants to talk about it, is that you have to first of all genuinely enjoy it. I think you have 2 weaknesses, and one of which isn't really a weakness. The first thing obviously is, ironically, it's your greatest strength, and sometimes our greatest strength can actually serve to weaken us at times, and that's your knowledge. You have such an intricate knowledge of StarCraft that sometimes, you know, you're too busy taking a shower in the forest that you don't notice the fire around you because you're cooled by the water. Now, your real weakness, and I think it's kind of, even though you've improved it from week to week to week, is the issue of color. And one of the things that as commentators we tend to do, or I know I tend to do, is that we look for interesting things to say to spice up our commentaries and make them more entertaining. And sometimes when they don't come naturally to us, or we haven't thought about it beforehand, we resort to being cheap, for want of a better word, for using foul language or you know, making fun of someone in order to induce laughs. It's a bit like the American Pie style of humor. Oh, look, he slipped on a banana peel, ha ha ha, that sort of thing. And I think that we really have to try to refrain from doing that, and to kind of, you know, do more justice to ourselves, because that whole, you know, from watching the previous episodes, the whole hooker comment, I personally didn't care for it. I felt it was unprofessional, and I didn't find it funny. And then the I think there was a comment about Hitler at some stage, and you mentioned that, and then there was the whole rape thing, and this time you had the whole everyone shitting their pants thing, and I can kind of see that being borderline funny, but I think you could probably do better, and I do think that that's your genuine weakness, and I think if you weed that out, you'd be a complete commentator. Also, what was up with your obsession with the robot headphones? I mean, it sounded like there was some kind of sex toy that you were obsessed with, the way you were going on about them.
Oh my God,
and
robot.
I don't want you to. Yeah, I don't want you to take this too much to heart, because I do think you're pretty good. But yeah, I think color is primarily where your weakness lies.
Kenny, rather than go on about your test grades, I don't particularly care too much about. What race did you play?
I guess during what point of my StarCraft career?
I guess most recently.
Most recently I've been a Protoss player.
Okay. Before that, were you a Protoss or were you a Terran player?
I was a Terran player.
All right. So my only question for you then is, being a Protoss player, I guess this does go back to the quiz questions, but being a Protoss player, I know that if you were, I think I remember you saying that you were a pretty good player at one point in the C+, B- range, and being a Protoss player nowadays, I would think that you would have read the strategy or the build order somewhere for something like the Bisu build to really know what it was. And you know, I hate to really harp on it, I guess, but you know, having the amount of technical knowledge that you do have, I was surprised that you didn't really know what the Bisu build was, even though you weren't there when it was becoming popularized and becoming, you know, a standard or a staple of play in Protoss play. Did you just never really read through the strategy in PvZ? Because I know that when you were a Terran player, I could have excused the fact that, yeah, you know, you never would have played PvZ to know what a Bisu build is, so, you know, I could kind of let that go. But if you were a Protoss player, how is it that you play Protoss without really knowing what that build is?
Yeah, Kenny, I would say that your enthusiasm is wonderful. Just be careful that in trying to make the game exciting, you don't lose track of the overall arc of the story. That I think when I'm listening to a commentary, especially of a game that's really epic, there's always sort of an context and an arc to what's happening in the game. There's like a storyline or a plot, and sometimes if you get too enthusiastic and say, "Oh, this player is you know, just great and wonderful and whatever," then that kind of it kind of breaks it up a little bit too much. So I would say just keep the greater story in mind.
Okay, thank you, judges and Kenny. And we'll be moving on right now to Morph 1081's submission for this week. He did July versus I Love UV, played in 2004 in the Gillette OSL, and we'll be watching some clips from his video right now.
Now this is I Love Uvi versus July Zerg. As you know, both players are really well known. July Zerg, definitely one of the players who we all feel for, but at times has just stumbled and fallen from inconsistency. So therefore, going into this, I would probably say that I Love Uvi is the man I'm going to back, just because I have seen I Love Uvi bottle quite a few times. Now, the map is Mercury. TVC, that trend there is just getting confused as hell, like spinning around. Probably getting nearly as confused as a Savior Ultralisk, if you remember from that other classic match of the OSL Finals of 2006, I believe, where Savior lost one of the key main battles because 4 of his Ultralisks just sort of linked together and just all got confused with each other, and so he couldn't resupply his forces. That was a great game, went for about 45 minutes, went down to the elimination in the end. One of my favourite matches of all time. See how many SCVs will go down. Scan goes off, and quite wisely the lurkers retreat away, leaving one behind almost as a sacrificial lamb to make sure that the other lurkers can get by, and unfortunately this failed. No real significant number of kills with those lurkers, and due to the angle they were coming in, I Love Uvi probably does suspect that there is some form of another base. I'm sure he doesn't specifically expect a proxy hatchery, but he will at least be wise to July Zerg having forces toward that side of the map. will be able to expand. We are still only on a 2 base versus 1 base in terms of bases that are actually mining. Zergling's moving in once again, but just so many going down, not able to stand up to this bunker supported by the siege tanks there and this medic marine force that is just being perpetually reinforced by those barracks there. Not as many barracks as I would like to see at the moment, but there is that third racks going up once again. Those two lurkers are just sat there, half acting as scouts and half just laying down that constant pressure. So I do believe that I Love UV is just waiting to get his tech up, waiting to get his... Really nice, he has just focused so much on units rather than building any tech buildings. And now once again, the lurkers and lings move in, but it's just not able to break it. There's just not enough of a conversation to come in. And now July, so sparse-based, comes in, and it's GG. He knows he's got nothing in the area to defend that. I'm just really tense going into this match. I mean, I think, especially when you watch older matches, you see that players... one SCV there getting caught by the Zerglings. Players do really tend to give each other a lot more breathing space. So yes, they are just morphing a little bit before. You know, you don't really see... You do see early harassment and you do see early pressure, but there is just a lot more room given by the other players. It's just how it tends to go. As I mentioned before, one of my favourite classic matches was that Nalvar versus Savior from 2006, and in that they just give each other such immense breathing room for so much of it. I guess it's the logic that they are not wanting to risk losing forces as early for what they might perceive as so little a disadvantage. Getting in there with the lurkers, sending them down, Farback goes down, and as I'm sure you saw, we have a third base going up for July Zerg there. They're just so hard to take down. Now finally we see the science facility and 2 starports, both with control towers, so we will see a good amount of science vessels in the air. Now we do see that first Dark Swarm. There's only a couple of siege tanks though to defend against it, swarming both bridges and that bunker. That's absolutely wonderful. Loads of what I can only presume are cracklings pouring in, even more Dark Swarms going off. Lurkers now getting right up in the faces, and it looks like this expansion may go down, and yet another Dark Swarm. These are beautiful, beautiful swarms. I know the word beautiful. Siege tank goes down. There is still 1 science vessel there, but it's just not enough. Dark Swarm goes off over the units, and there is the GG. That was a romping. That was a romping internet. I don't believe I just did 2 matches in a row, and I've just finally used the word romp. It is my favourite word, internet, and that was the very definition of the romp.
Alright, so yeah, I'm already biased towards you because of the accent. We've got to stick together. But yeah, so anyway, for game 1, first thing that I noticed, that proxy hatchery went down. My question is, when did you know what the purpose of that hatchery was? And do you know what the purpose of the little lurker attack was, basically? Because it was very critical and it sort of won or lost the game for July. So what happened there?
Well, I presume the purpose of the proxy was to try and have forces coming from an unknown location, and I also guess it was an area that was less likely to be scanned. And I would have to say, if there was a specific purpose other than just a generic contain to the lurker attack, I think because he was pushing them in so much, maybe he might have been going for tech, as in like trying to attack his opponent's tech, but no, I couldn't give a more solid answer than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because what I believe happened was July used that little flank to actually break the contain in front of his base and then just get the entire army back into the base so he could actually move out and try to expand. Sadly, he just ran all of his forces into the blockade and he lost the game because of it. But yeah. So then the second game, I have one major comment there, right? Because all the color you bring, everything you say, it's alright, but for the love of all that is good in the world, breathe! Once in a while, just breathe. Because, I don't know, break your tone, burst into song, I don't really care, but you have to segment what you're saying, because it starts to become one giant stream, and you lose everything. You also don't make breaks between your analysis or the play-by-play. So you just, one of the clips you saw, you just go from one into the other and you don't really know there was a shift there. So that's my major thing.
Well, first of all, just in terms of the whole, I suppose you'd have to call it the constant stream of consciousness thing. Sometimes I do take little breaks by doing little weird things and do break into song, but I think because it's whenever it's a Commentator Idol episode, I guess I'm on sort of best behavior, and especially after week 2, I do try and keep the randomness down. But I'm doing it again now, is just coming at you with a constant wall of thought. But I guess that's just how I roll, and if it's something that some people don't like, I suppose I will work on it. But nevertheless, it is just how I do.
Hi, Morph. So firstly, I gotta admit, I'm a little bit jealous of you because you've just got that kind of voice that, you know, when you start talking, I'm sure women in the vicinity start getting urges to take their clothes off. So I am jealous of that. And you have another great thing, which cannot be learnt, which is wit, and you're very articulate, and you've got all that going for you. But I think in the first game, when you saw the drone go around the corner and you know you started going on about ultralist nonsense, about the ultralist from Savior's game, that is a classic example of how not to use history in a StarCraft commentary. Generally it is a good idea to try and bring in your knowledge of other games and past players, but there was absolutely no relation between Savior's game and between that game and what was going on screen, either tactically or from any perspective. There was no link there, and it just felt like the reason you said that was because you had nothing else interesting to say at that point in time. I mean, you yourself commented that you saw the Overlord float down towards the right direction from July for his scouting. So therefore, and the drone had gone and scouted the other base. So therefore, July knew exactly where Uvi's base was. So that drone couldn't have been going around scouting. And yet you went on about it being confused, and then you went into this Savior rant. So I guess my question is, what were you thinking?
Well, I suppose I was thinking for a start, proxy hatcheries are insane, and I think it would have been quite a big gaffe to go, oh my god, it's going to be a proxy hatchery, and then it turns out to have just been a misclick or something. Yeah, I suppose it was quite a forced segue trying to bring in the Savior quip, but as I said, you know, that is my sort of favourite classic game, so I wanted to find a way to cram that in regardless, so I just, yeah, I suppose, I mean, as you said, you know, before, one of the things that commentators have to try and do is find things that are interesting to say, especially when there's a sort of lull in. So rather than taking the risk of going, oh, it's going to be a proxy, I instead tried to go for the banter to sort of put that to one side until I could be certain it was going to be a proxy.
All right, Morph. I think that means I'm up. I got a couple of questions for you, but first, a little bit about what I thought of your commentary. Be honest, I was a little disappointed throughout the entire match. I felt like you had a lack of enthusiasm, as I guess touched upon by Greth before. You had a little bit of a monotone feel throughout this entire commentary, and I didn't feel the passion there. You know, this is something I always talk about in StarCraft commentaries: is you have to have the passion for it. You know, you have to really be into it. Now, I think that you're one of the contestants that have taken the most out of our criticisms, but then at the same time, I feel like you've almost taken too much out of our criticisms, and now you've kind of watered yourself down to a point where I actually tuned you out once or twice throughout your commentary. I got to be honest. I caught myself a couple times going, "Oh my God, I forgot there was someone talking that's not even Korean. It's English, but I'm not paying attention." You know, so I mean, one of my questions is, what time did you cast this at? I mean, I know that you're overseas and Cholera probably tried to make some accommodations for you, but what time did you actually cast this game at?
I think we started at about 10:40ish in the evening. I mean, in terms of passion for the match, I'm actually really disappointed that it didn't come across because, you know, I've been hurt for various things. I've been in a foul mood for the last few weeks, and that's actually one of the first commentaries I've enjoyed doing in a lot of times. You know, I was really disparaged after the last few weeks, but as I said, you know, with the more renaissance, as it were, I did feel really hyped again, and I'm just sorry that I wasn't able to convey it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like you were putting in the effort. I mean, I thought that you were on top of the commentary better, but in terms of, I guess, play-by-play, although you may have missed one or two things, but I'm not going to go into that. And really the only time I felt any passion from you is from the Defilers crossing the bridge at the end of the game, where there were like 5 or 6 dark swarms, and then finally you were getting into it, and I'm like, oh my god, it came too late for me, you know? The build-up wasn't there to the finale, and I felt that just throughout the game you were lacking. And I'm sorry, because I was hoping that I was going to get some of that first week morph back into the game, which I'll be honest, I think you kind of need to go back to it. You take our criticisms into account, but at the same time, don't forget who you are when you're doing your commentaries, because that is what I picked you for in when I was choosing who I thought should move on to be a commentator idol contestant. It was Morph, because Morph had that color, he had the passion in there, he had the wacky game, the game comments and things like that, and although you had some color thrown in there, I just felt like it wasn't the original Morph-esque commentary that I was so hoping to have this week after not having that in the past two.
I agree partly with Klazart and Rise, with the whole monotone thing. But there's something that I've come a little bit to realize about you, which makes me disagree with them. I think that while you do tend to have you do tend to go to extremes. You're either extremely zany, or you go to the other extreme and become very sort of restrained in the way you talk. And I actually kind of like that restraint in a sense, because it works very well with your accent, and while it may come across sometimes as unenthusiastic, actually to me it makes me focus in more on the really clever turns of phrase and the way you talk about the way you compare little events in the game to certain other phenomena in the real world, which to me is sort of the best evidence of color. So I would say that you've come a very long way in terms of the fluency of your commentary, in terms of many things. I would say that you have to understand that you have these different linguistic tools at your disposal. You can be very zany and you can make up songs about Kakaru, and at the same time you can be sort of a little bit more proper and professional, but still add in those little zany bits of deadpan humor and colorful phrasing. So I think you have to look at that in yourself and just realize that these are sort of colors at your disposal on, like, let's say, your commentator palette. And you take a dab of this, you take a dab of that, and you start painting your painting. So I would say overall, great job, but you just have to get more familiar with it.
I really liked the colour metaphor, because I dropped out of an arts college. I think sort of I've been taking probably a sort of Andy Warhol approach, where I've been taking like the same basic image and trying it like, oh, let's have blue and red in this one, and then we'll have blue and yellow in that one, rather than just, as you're saying, looking at everything that's available and then trying to make the best goulash out of that.
Okay, thank you, Morph, and the judges. We'll be moving on right now to some clips from Morph's test and some of the best and worst parts of it. Let's take a look. Question 3. Which player holds the nickname The Legend Killer?
J-Dog.
Question 9. Going by ELO score and recent performances, who is currently the best player on CJ Entus?
Oh god, ooh, that's probably a trick question, so I'm going to go for effort.
What is the main reason a Protoss player would like to get a very early +1 attack upgrade against the Zerg?
Because it increases the attack of more than one kind of unit.
Okay, question 2. In a standard late game Terran versus Zerg, your science vessel has the option to irradiate an Ultralisk, Defiler, or Lurker, which are part of a force that is about to attack. So an Ultralisk, Defiler, or Lurker. In most cases, which one would you irradiate first?
Ooh, that's tricky, because on one hand, obviously, the Defiler is a spellcaster, but on the other, the Lurker's burrowed, so they might not notice that it has been irradiated. And then as things are moving over it, it might also get irradiated in the splash. So yeah, I'd go for Lurker.
All right, very nice, Morph. And Morph, I have one StarCraft knowledge question for you also, extemporaneously. Let's see how you do. You want 1 or 3?
I'm going to follow in form and also pick the same as last time and go for 3.
All right, two-part question. How much damage does an unupgraded Goliath do to an unupgraded Mutalisk on one full rocket attack?
Oh god, I suck at exact numbers. I think it's somewhat, I want to say it's 20, but that just could be a number I've extrapolated out for now.
Okay, I will tell you the answer. No, it's 10 because Mutalisks are small-sized. Okay, so it only
Of
deals
course!
50% damage. Yeah. Now, let me ask you a second part, and this will, this is very important because armor and damage types and all that, we have to know them, to be able to tell what is good against what. Now, how much damage would an unupgraded Goliath do in one full attack if the Mutalisk had 2 armor, so plus 2 armor upgrades?
Plus 2 armor. Well, I'm probably being a moron, but wouldn't that just mean 8 then if it's 10 normally and then it's just 2 less for the armor?
Okay, Morph, you are correct. It is 8 damage, but I just wanted to point out Goliaths actually are the same as Zealots. They have 2 attacks, so each attack counts as 10 damage, but you would subtract 2 from each attack, so each shot deals 8 damage, times 2, then divided by 2 equals 8. But you are correct. Now, moving on to Greth. What did you think about how Morph did on the exam, and any general comments about Morph afterwards?
Right, so yeah, the test's not that good because you didn't really pass, but well, I'm not a very good person to actually judge on StarCraft knowledge in general because I usually stay out of the deep analysis. But still, it's kind of unfortunate you picked that you picked a lurker instead of the defiler. Just go with what you got. Don't overthink things. Just go for it. And I think that's also a good general comment. When you have your stream of consciousness, just don't go looping in little thoughts. If yeah, maybe the thing I said, is that right? No, maybe yes, no. Just say it and just go for it. Think about it. Sometimes take a step back, look at the entire game. Small pauses, they feel very long once you're actually doing a commentary. If you stop for 2-3 seconds, it's an eternity. But you have to step back from that so you can actually focus on the game instead of actually focus on what you're saying, because it's about the game, not just about the commentary.
Well, I don't ever pause in my commentary, so I don't necessarily agree with that. But I have to say, Morph, I was really looking forward to watching your commentary after the previous SC2GG Commentary Idol episodes. And if I'm to be perfectly honest, I was hugely disappointed. I really feel that you kind of let yourself down to the point where I was almost starting to feel like you didn't care. And I know that's a very harsh thing to say. But the thing about this quiz that caller did, I didn't realize this before watching the quiz. I didn't realize just how instructive it would be in exposing the actual depth of the knowledge. And I think this holds true for all 3 contestants. I got such a better picture of what you guys, of your strengths and weaknesses from just the quiz alone. And I think it was a brilliant idea by Cholera, so props to Cholera for that. But I think one of the issues that you're having is that now I've been criticized again for my game knowledge at times and my my analysis, and sometimes people don't agree with me, and I've come under a lot of flack for that. So I sympathize and empathize with you on that, and that's why I want to ask you: is there a particular reason why you don't feel that you can go and kind of do a little bit more research? I'm not saying you have to really go in depth and psycho and play 10 hours a day, but I mean, have you tried to make any efforts to improve your overall knowledge of the game? I know it's a relatively short time, but I think this has been going on for 4 weeks now.
Yeah, wouldn't say that I've done any special training specifically as a result of Commentator Idol since I sort of took up the mantle of deciding to have a go at this, because obviously I think you guys can probably imagine that I was a fan of StarCraft and I decided to go into commentaries because I felt that I would be good at the charisma side of things rather than the knowledge. And so obviously I have been trying to improve my knowledge and just trying to get as much of the things like the damage types and whatnot. I mean, I think I did make some obviously glaring mistakes, but obviously I was even just more rough in the pro scene knowledge. But yeah, I have been trying to improve myself, but I tend to try and improve myself rather than like just going and looking at raw information somewhere. I instead just prefer to try and watch matches and take little notches of what players actually do as tactics, and then what some of the more sort of tech-based commentators then say about that, rather than sort of booking it, as it were.
I'm not going to go into your test scores very much because I just don't feel like it. Do you think that the test accurately portrayed your level of StarCraft knowledge?
I think that it accurately portrayed my knowledge of the pro scene, which is slim to none. In terms of how well it portrayed my StarCraft knowledge, well, I mean, the test speaks for itself. Obviously, I didn't know a few things. Like, I did know that, like, a Zealot does 16 damage, but I just didn't quite work it out right. Um, Gee, it's really hard because I don't want to say, yeah, I know bugger all about StarCraft and I never play, because that's not true. It's just that I don't really like, as I was saying, do those ready things, although I probably should. So, okay, getting to the answer to the question, was it a fair representation? I'd probably actually say yes, it was, because I can't sort of try and offer any defense that I am a technically knowledge player when it's plain for anyone to see that I'm not a technically knowledge person.
Just knowing the fundamental reasoning behind things like the quick upgrades, or why one unit composition is more effective versus another one. That's what I think you need to make sure you know, and as long as you know that, you'll be pretty good and pretty safe in your commentaries.
All right, Morph. One thing I was going to ask at the beginning, but it slipped my mind. Do you now know why a Protoss player would like to get a very early +1 attack? And did you know that before I asked you, but then just got confused or forgot about it when you answered?
No, I didn't know that it would. I mean, I suppose on some level I would be aware that obviously with an attack upgrade it will affect the number of kills required to kill something, but I just didn't know. I didn't just do the sort of basic logic that, oh, of course, Zerglings have like 0 hit points. Of course, it's going to, take it from a 3-shot to a 2-shot.
Okay, Morph, I do appreciate your honesty in admitting that. And while I think you are a very entertaining commentator right now, I do feel that in order to take your commentary to the next level, you really should learn more about the basic strategy of today's builds. Going to some of the strategy sections of the popular StarCraft forums, I think would really help you. You don't have to necessarily become a great player, but on relatively simple things like knowing that the +1 attack for Protoss is mainly for the Zealots to kill Zerglings in 2 hits is such a basic part of making interesting and good commentaries. And while I might be being a bit harsh on you, I think you'll find that if you get to know these basics of the modern builds and of the most popular builds done by pro gamers, you'll suffer much less criticism from people who aren't as constructive as we are. But with that being said, let's have conclusory thoughts from the judges. Pina, I think you had something to say, right?
So Marv, I actually have a quick question. Do you do a lot of improvisational acting?
No, I don't. I mean, well, I did do. It's more devising than improv as such, because obviously improv's based on more of a, well, in the way that we were taught, it is based on more of a neutral situation rather than having a more specific goal as in devising. So yes and no.
I was just wondering because I was personally interested. That would translate into doing sort of this off the cuff kind of commentary, and I think you do have it spot on that you're much stronger on sort of the entertainment and the color and the drama sort of things, and you do have an excellent flair for the dramatic. So I would say, given that you've probably had a lot of training in acting and that and that you understand the terms of acting, and that it's been a discipline for you, that if you want to keep getting better at StarCraft commentary, you should approach it with the same mindset that you would any performance art, and I think that's something that would help you get a lot better.
Thank you very much, Peanut. That was really good advice. And we'll be moving on right now to Hazel's commentary. She got Savior versus Now Raw in the Pringles 1 MSL, played in 2006. And we're going to take a look at a couple of clips the judges picked from her commentaries.